Are you a real estate investor looking to sharpen your skills or a newbie looking to become one? You're in the right place. Welcome to Where Should I Invest? Real Estate Investing in Canada with your host, Sarah Larby.
Tony Miller, welcome back. How are you?
Great to be here, Sarah. How are you?
Good. I think last time it was, a year ago? A year and a half ago, maybe, the last time that you were on the podcast?
About that, yeah. We were talking about a variety of things, if I remember right. And we just spent the first 20 minutes before hopping on air here chatting and ranting about a bunch of stuff. So it's great to be here. Nice to see you.
Awesome. Yes, we were chatting about our fitness schedules, our gym schedules, and then some stuff that's happening from a real estate standpoint. So
You're an absolute beast. You're an absolute beast out there going 7 days a week, you said? Like that's awesome.
yeah, I mean, I usually will do like 13 out of 14 days because there's always a random day that for some reason I'm just not around or whatnot. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I enjoy working out. I enjoy the energy that it provides, the clarity afterwards. And I think because it's like, so F45 and you kind of go like cardio and then you just strength the next day. The next day it's cardio. It kind of goes back and forth. And sometimes it's just upper body. Sometimes it's just lower body. So in a sense, like you could kind of rest, like they say you have to have 1 day rest, right? I'm kind of resting some part of my body
Yeah.
at some point.
Yeah. You're resting right now. You're sitting down. You're just chatting. It's
Yeah.
recuperation time, right? It's your muscles are enjoying this. So I just have to ask, so like if you're working out 7 days a week, when people go to your beach retreats, are they obligated to participate in those workouts with you?
So the retreat, we are gonna have some yoga classes on demand, and then we're gonna like actually I recruited or I'm talking to somebody in F45 to potentially do some fitness stuff at the resort because there's no like
Nice.
F45 gym. And my cottage, which is essentially where I spend the summer, is like about 20 minutes from Peterborough, and they do have an F45 there. So to answer your question is when I have friends over that come to my cottage. Yes, I do make them get up with me. And then we basically all go to F45 together. And then sometimes
That's
some of them
great.
can't walk for a few days afterwards. So
Yeah. Yeah. And
Nice.
are they aware of this before they sign up to go?
Yeah,
Or
I tell
is it
everyone to
you
bring their
just bring it on them?
shoes.
Yeah.
No, it's like, I mean, look, the more I know you, the more that you're gonna be like coming regardless of what you say. My friends that are coming up for the first time, maybe I'll give them a break. But
Yeah.
like the ones that are coming back over and over, I'm like, make sure you bring your shoes. And
Yeah.
and if they don't, well, you're going to work out in socks because they're going anyways. So, but you know what,
Yeah.
I enjoy it, but I also love, and I think you're kind of like me. I love food, like love, love, love food. I love eating. I like trying different things. I love restaurants. And then I don't want to have to pick and choose what I want to eat.
No. And you're right. And working out and I think it's a really great way, a really great setup that you have with your retreats and the cottage and your lifestyle. I think what you're living today is what a lot of people aspire to.
Yeah, well, that's nice. Thank you. And then hopefully
Well,
we'll see you at the resort this summer.
yes.
We've got lots of great
Yes.
things.
For sure.
But today's about you. Today is about what you've been up to since the last time you've been on, what's happening in the areas that we're looking at from a real estate standpoint. I mean, you're in Ottawa. You also run the Association for Landlords in Ottawa, so we can talk about that. But first and foremost, what's new and exciting in your life since the last I guess let's call it year and a half.
Well, in my life, I guess a year and a half, I've really picked up, like yourself, I've really started working out much more. And that's what we were talking about before. So that's really, and you mentioned the word clarity. And I think that really captures a lot of the impact that working out has, at least on my end. And apart from that, I think last time I was on, I mentioned that I changed my realtor business sort of thing. I was stepping away from various affiliations and didn't have the drive to continue moving forward and trying to build the business. And I'm continuing that path. I'm happy with that. And everything's going well that way. And most of my efforts when it comes to real estate, apart from doing a few deals with helping clients, been doing some private money lending, which is great. I'm happy with that as well. And really focusing my time at the Ottawa Small Landlords Association, trying to educate landlords, Ottawa based landlords, of people who are investing in land in Ottawa, the rules and regulations that are happening there, in addition to some LTV stuff. So it's the business of landlording there. So I'm spending a lot of time doing that type of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if you get paid for this. I'm going to guess probably you're doing it out of the goodness of your own heart for the majority of the time. And it's a lot. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of effort. But we all thank you for it.
So, well, thank you. Yeah, it's people are. I have something set up, where people can donate or buy me a coffee or whatever it is, some type of app like that. But yeah, I enjoy it, and it's a tie into the other things that I'm doing. Being a realtor, if I'm working with investors only, I need to know
Right.
what's going on out there, and
Hmm.
so I'm best positioned to help them and represent their interests the best way I can. So that's helpful. And with the Ottawa Real Estate Investors Conference as well, that ties into that part. So yeah, it's all good. I'm happy to do it, and probably similar to your podcast and what you're doing is you don't always get feedback from people,
Hmm.
and you don't always know who's watching or who's
Right.
listening.
Right.
And there's probably a lot of people watching and listening that you don't know. Eh? Like the
Hmm.
numbers are quite high.
Definitely.
So and people are I know people are happy with some of the stuff that they're getting from us. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
Okay. All right, cool. So, obviously there's been a lot of changes from a real estate standpoint with the increase in rates and a lot of unknowns. And I think a lot of rules and regulations that have come into play and are continuing to come into play. And I find it interesting too that you're also a private lender. So that's, your choice of investing in a sense. But we'll get to that in a minute. But what are some of, big changes? I mean, you're in Ottawa, your investors are predominantly in that region as well. I think we were just talking about this before, like in terms of regulations, like you guys are up there with
Yeah,
municipalities.
yeah. You know, it, an argument can be made that other municipalities are doing the same thing, but I think Ottawa, perhaps Toronto, are the leaders in what's moving forward in terms of rental housing regulations and housing regulations that impact housing providers. And they're not specific to rental housing, but there are other regulations that can add cost and red tape and stuff. So yeah, Ottawa's really years ago I used to be able to hop on a stage somewhere and say, "Hey, yeah, come to Ottawa. We're somewhat landlord friendly, and the environment itself is good, and yeah, come on out. You'll do well. It's a stable market. It's a decent market. We have 160,000 federal government jobs. We got a high tech sector. Come on out. It's stable. Now." And people think I'm crazy for saying this, and I know some Ottawa realtors give me a hard time because I say it, but I tell people, go put your money elsewhere. Don't come to Ottawa. It's like I'm turning away business or potential business, perhaps, but I don't want to BS anybody. It's if I'm not willing to park my money here in Ottawa, I have to be upfront with the people I'm representing as well.
Hmm.
And it's really because of the number of regulations that have come into place since 2019 here in Ottawa.
So give us like a couple examples of what these regulations look like.
Sure. Let's start with the rental housing property management bylaw that came into place. So it's what is it in Toronto? Rent Safe Toronto. I forget what it's called in Toronto. They have a program there. So it's basically everything in the bylaw except for licensing and registration. Okay, so there's no landlord licensing or registration yet. But in
Yeah, I
this
feel like
bylaw,
is the big word. It's coming.
yes, yeah, it's on the radar. And that's interesting though. I got some news for that. Um, so in this bylaw, we have a bunch of documents that landlords have to create, maintain, provide to tenants. Tenants have to sign, have to acknowledge. We have tenant registries, service requests, documents for tenants. And even Ottawa Community Housing has to do it. So there's that one. And it's not so much once you have it set up, it's okay. But for small landlords, it's more the setup. It's a pain in the butt to do. Because bigger landlords already have their systems. They have the electronic systems in place for all this type of stuff. So smaller landlords, a bit of a pain to set up. Once you got it going, it's not so bad. But it is a pain, right? It's one of those,
Mhm.
it's not an incentive to come in and invest in Ottawa. I will say though, that it is good. It's a good argument, that bylaw, for not implementing landlord licensing, because most of the calls for landlord licensing from tenant advocates and housing advocates is because of derelict buildings or landlords who aren't maintaining their properties well, that type of thing. Well, this bylaw gives tenants the power to, call bylaw, and there's fines associated, and landlords are expected to maintain their properties to a certain standard beyond the property standards bylaw that we have in
Mm.
Ottawa, if that makes sense. Um, so another one is, the short-term rental bylaw that's in play now. We have the vacant unit tax bylaw. We
So
have
so
the,
what is okay, wait. So let's just quickly let's go through each one. So short-term rental bylaw, every municipality has some changes in how they do it. What is Ottawa's as an example?
so Ottawa is less than 30 days, less than 30 nights, sorry. And there are some exemptions, but it has to be your principal residence
Okay.
that you're
And
renting
it
out. So you
sounds
have to
like
get,
that principal residence thing is what's coming down in a lot of other municipalities in terms of what can be done, not done. And then I don't know if there's a certain limit of number of days and whatnot as well.
not in Ottawa.
Okay.
No, they didn't do that in Ottawa, but I know it's elsewhere.
Mhm.
Our, you know, I think one of the things that we really wanted to see was allowing secondary dwelling units, legal units, or maybe even just, secondary suites in general, to be used by homeowners as short-term rentals, as long as they get a permit, like, go ahead, but they banned that as well. And so that was a bit of a pain in the butt, but yeah, it's effectively, I won't say killed short-term rentals in Ottawa, but I don't know how people are going to make money doing it here.
Right.
So that's what's happening there.
Okay. And
Uh,
about the vacant tax you mentioned.
oh, okay. If we had a
How
heart
do you really
monitor,
feel about it? Just kidding.
if I had a heart monitor on right now, you'd see my beep, 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 like going through the roof with the vacant unit tax. So the vacant unit tax, it's a very long story, but it's essentially, if anybody, if there are a bunch of exemptions again, but it's really targeting secondary properties owned by small landlords, who are leaving them vacant for over 184 days annually. Uh, Regardless if it's really meant for secondary properties, every homeowner in the city of Ottawa has to complete it, the declarations every year, and that's really angered residents here. A lot of people are not happy with that. Uh, it's unfortunate because the city moved ahead without figuring out if they have a problem or not. What problem are you trying to fix? And we don't know if Ottawa has a vacant unit problem. And we told them, no, we don't. When I say we, OSLA, Ottawa Real Estate Board, Home Builders Association, all the real estate groups saying, no, like, yeah, of course there are some vacant units, but we don't have a huge problem like in Toronto or maybe Vancouver.
Mhm.
But Ottawa decided to go with the heavy-handed approach and went all in, with mandatory declarations. I asked for an exemption to include, an exemption for the LTV. So
Mhm.
small landlords who are leaving their units vacant because of the LTV, they don't want to rent it out until the LTV gets fixed. They said, no, you got to learn how to screen tenants better, they said. So that was that.
But
So
you can't get a property and purchase a property and ask for the tenant to vacate if it's not going to be for you to move in. So like where like it's a catch-22.
it is. It's really, um, there are so many things wrong with this bylaw, but let me explain it in one way, if I can, is that the bylaw, the only way the bylaw can be successful is if units are less vacant in the first place.
Hmm.
That's it, because they're trying to raise as much money as possible for affordable housing, right? And so the only way they can do that is if units are vacant. They're only going to, over 5 or 6 years there, I think the number of vacant units that will become occupied is 543.
Right. Do you know
6
the amount
years.
of, yeah, it's minuscule.
So the city decided to move forward, and they really didn't know what they were trying to fix or how many problems or what kind of problems there were. They made it retroactive to 2022 as well. That's another problem. Why didn't they just make it for 2023? They didn't consult the public properly. That was another issue that came up. And being involved in the stakeholder stuff behind the scenes with the city, there's other things that happened, I know. But anyways, we're supposed to know in probably September, October, how it went in terms of the number of people who declared, how many vacant units there are. The city staff are supposed to provide a report at that time. I'm expecting a lot of spin in it, and we'll see. Hopefully, I know some councillors are not happy with it. They told me like they'd like to rescind it, but hey, it's politics, eh? Well, especially when it comes to affordable housing, are they really going to pull the plug? I don't think so.
I mean, unfortunately, I think what the aftermath of this is people are saying, well, Ottawa's coming with a ton of regulations, ton of additional bylaws. If they don't want us here, why do we keep trying to invest here? Let's take our money elsewhere. Let's take our
Yeah,
money out of Canada. Let's take our money out of Ontario. And I think we're seeing more and more of this, probably more so, I want to say, in the last 6 to 9 months. People saying, you know what, all these regulations, just like it's becoming a point where it doesn't make sense anymore. They're trying to do something, but they're also alienating us by, it's a stick versus the carrot, but why don't you try to create some incentives?
yeah,
Because
for sure.
ultimately what's going to happen is there's going to be less and less to rent. People are going to, unfortunately, investors are business people, and, or fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to, like, from my point of view, I'm going to take my money elsewhere. I'm not just going to say, too bad. Well, I guess I'm going
Mm,
to now make a lot less money based on these investments and these new rules than I was making before. No, I'm going to
yeah,
take the money and I'm going to sell the house. I'm going to do something and I'm going to invest somewhere else as a
yeah.
worst case scenario.
And in addition to the vacant unit tax, get this, right? And they decided at the same time, just 2 months later, they decided to go with the vacant property bylaw, which is a landlord licensing bylaw, effectively. So if you own a property, let's say a single family home, and it's completely vacant for 120 days, consecutive days, you have to go get a license for $1,600 at the city. And this applies to builders as well, like their tracts of land, each lot that they own that is vacant, because it applies to land. So if a builder owns 200 lots and each one is vacant, because takes a while to get
Mhm.
everything going before
And
they actually
permits. It
build.
takes a long time to get permits so you can start building.
And so can you imagine the costs? Like, and this is a yearly fee that they have to pay. So the costs really add up. And the thing with the vacant property bylaw is that there is no renovations exemption. So my clients and some people that are doing secondary dwelling units. They're buying a single family or semi-detached. They want to convert the basement. We need it vacant to be able to do that, to convert the basement to extra units. If it's vacant for more than 120 consecutive days, you got to pay $1,600. And we're creating units, we're creating housing, but they're penalizing you for doing that. And you know how long it takes to do secondary dwelling units? At least here in Ottawa, you're looking at 3 to 8 months, depending on
Getting,
supply chain and
yeah,
contractors and everything.
100%. And not only that, but before you get permits, you're probably, not every municipality, some are better than others, but you're like on average, I'm guess 2 to 3 months before your permits are ready to go.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I guess I'll touch on one more bylaw, if that's okay, if we have time, is the city of Ottawa was looking to prohibit and prevent renovictions. So basically, if you have a rental unit that requires repairs, right, and really needs, it's legit, they were going to make it very difficult for you to do it, or prevent you from doing it. And it's very. I was kind of gobsmacked, and even now I'm sort of like lost for words when I'm talking. Why would they do that? One, it's a provincial responsibility, but two, they wanted to at the municipal level have a bylaw that would restrict and prevent us from doing renovations. Ones that require building permits and everything. And so the city solicitor went away, did some research. He came back in a report and said the city does not have the legal authority to do that, to write a bylaw and outright restrict
Hmm.
or prevent, but they can make it difficult for landlords. They can maybe create a fund for tenants to use to fight the evictions if it comes up for N13s. They could use it to um, uh, uh, house tenants in other units that come up, that type of thing, right? Help with their moving costs. They can force landlords to do that. And we're starting to see some of that stuff like already at the municipal
Hmm.
level, like in terms of memorandum of understandings and agreements. So yeah, it's it's not very friendly. Uh, During that rent evictions bylaw discussion, I asked in a letter if councillors would write to the province and ask them to fix the LTB, the landlord and tenant board,
Hmm.
right? If you're going to have these type of policies, well, and you're expecting tenants to have recourse for them, right? Because if they don't,
Yeah.
well, they need someplace to go. Uh, well, tell them to fix the LTB. There's no point in adding all these new bylaws and restrictions at the provincial level and at the municipal level if the LTB is not functioning properly.
Hmm.
Uh, they said no,
Mm.
no.
But it's nice.
They support the delays.
Yeah, that's insane. But it's nice that you're like actively, pursuing and trying to, make some sense out of it for a lot of investors in Ottawa. Like I feel like you're the Kayla uh of the of the West or of the East, I should say.
Thanks. Yeah, Kayla does great work out there, eh? She's been at it for a long time and has done an amazing job.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So, okay, so when somebody's coming to you, are there municipalities or regions or I don't know, something out of Ottawa that you're like, look at this area instead. They don't have the same
Mhm.
bylaws. Like, do you
Yeah.
recommend any other areas?
Sure. Well, I think the first thing that we look at is, well, what are they trying to achieve, what their goals are, and
Mhm.
how much money they have and everything. And uh, long-term rentals might not be their thing, but maybe they're interested in some creative real estate here in Ottawa, which might be doable,
Okay.
right? So maybe it's wholesaling, maybe it's some flips, depending on the market and the type of property and everything. So we still look at that. Maybe they're interested in commercial,
Mhm.
something. And I'm not talking. I'm
Multi.
not talking. It could be, yeah. Well, it could be multi-use as well,
Okay.
more that type of thing, rather than just plain old residential.
Like
I wouldn't get
residential
in.
on top and then some like, commercial could like,
Yeah,
like office type of space or
sure.
on
Yeah,
the bottom.
grocery store on the bottom, something like that. I wouldn't get into plain old residential anymore here, at least myself. And industrial, like if you have
Mhm.
the knowledge and you have the know-how, and if you're interested in
Mhm.
that type of thing, well, heck, go do some industrial. Industrial is huge demand here in Ottawa right now.
I think it's, I mean, the
Especially-
the right type and light industrial, I think there's huge demand, like probably in the majority of Ontario.
yeah, yeah. So that's really cool. So outside of that, I'm saying get out of Ontario, and Alberta is one, especially when it for the landlord rules, which are a little bit more permissive, or a lot more permissive, or friendlier, I should say. And but I don't know about you, but I'm starting, like, I don't know the market. I don't know Calgary and Alberta, Airdrie, and
Mhm.
so relying on people there. And I know it fluctuates, it goes up and down um quite a bit.
There's pros
So
and
I can
cons. There is really pros and cons to every market. Like I still like Ontario. Like, do I
Mhm.
love all the new regulations and policy? I mean, I think Ottawa, like that Ottawa's probably not a place I would personally invest in. That's just me. But I
Mhm.
still think there are areas that make sense. And I don't think that Edmonton and Alberta, if you're holding this for the long term in 10 years from now, is going to do as well as Ontario regardless.
Yeah.
So, but Alberta
Mhm.
and, Calgary, Edmonton in there, and I'm sure there's lots of other towns that do well, have a lot better landlord-tenant system, and it's definitely more centralized than, everything going to the tenants' favors all the time.
Yeah. And there are deals to be had in Ottawa in the residential area, residential
Mhm.
zones, right? If you're looking to get into that type of investment, I'm not saying that there isn't. It just depends how much BS you want to put up with,
Yeah.
and how much you want to tolerate. Outside of Alberta, uh, it starts going down to the US, Florida, Arizona. You've probably seen the ads if you're on Facebook at all, not so much Twitter, but Facebook and maybe even Instagram, you're seeing ads for Costa Rica is huge. The
Hmm.
Canadian population down there is growing, I'm pretty sure. Panama, Colombia, Central America in general, Europe. I saw one ad, Sarah, for Africa. I screenshotted it. I have it. I'll send it to you. One for
You
Africa.
know who invests in Africa? So Andrew Chubeta, Caveat LLP. He's got like multifamily in Ethiopia, but I think he's got family there, so it's a little easier.
Is it?
But I'm because at one time because he was on my podcast, I'm like, if somebody wants to invest in Ethiopia, what do you tell them? They're like, don't. He's like, don't do it. The only reason is because he's got like feet on the street there that he trusts and
Yes.
kind of stuff.
Yes.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
it's yeah. It's
It's,
different risk level tolerance for different people and different opportunities, I think. But you're doing private lending now. So why did you go that route? Because all the
um,
BS you see?
well, I think I got tired of just in general, I'm tired of real estate. Of
Okay.
and everything on my Facebook feed, everything wherever I go, it's always real estate. And one reason why I sort of slowed down or stopped growing my realtor business is because of that. I just tired of it. Want to do something a little bit different and slow things down. So that was one reason. I didn't want to be a landlord anymore. I don't want to do property management anymore. Um, and I just thought, okay, well, let's do some private money lending, and I'm getting good returns. I would argue that more people who are doing joint ventures starting out should get into private money first, private money lending first, because the returns can be just as good without the hassle. Like if you're not a working partner, and you're depending on your split and all the other variables that go into it, you're still going to make really
Mhm.
good returns. And you don't have, sure, you don't own a property, but it's all about how much money you can make in the end. I'm doing just as well there without the hassle. I'm taking a course. Chad Robinson's having a course at the end of this month for private money lending, and just a refresher for me because it's been a while, and just learn and connect with some new lawyers and finance people as well. So I'm looking forward to that. So that's really the reason why. And yeah, I enjoy it. It's fairly straightforward.
No, absolutely. I mean, there's different ways that you can invest in real estate, and that you're probably picking one of the most passive ways. Again, pros and cons to every strategy.
Yeah.
Just so if somebody wants to do essentially something similar to what you're doing right now with private lending, like what are some of the things that you look for, like property wise, deal wise, or investor wise, that you can maybe give some insights of, to somebody that might be thinking, okay, I want to have some money. I don't want to do a deal per se, but maybe you want a private lend.
Yeah. Um, for me personally, I'm looking for deals. Well, you mentioned the three areas: the property, the people, and the deal. So those are the three things at a high level that we look at. And one is the location. I prefer to do lending here in the Ottawa area. And number two, the people are people who I know have had a success, and I've known for a while, and I trust them. It doesn't mean I don't verify the information, because if they're friends, it doesn't matter if they're friends. I'm still going to tear them apart, and in a nice way. I mean, like asking for all the documentation and do my due diligence properly. Um, and I'm also looking at shorter term. Most people who are borrowing money would like to have it for long term. I'm the opposite. 6 months, maybe a year,
Hmm.
depending. First position is basically what I go for. I'm open to seconds as well if it makes sense. Sometimes if the rates are high enough and the terms are good, I don't even ask for an upfront fee in some cases, right? You don't ask for the lender fee and everything. It's all part of that negotiation thing. Um, so those are location, property, deals. I wasn't really into the syndicate mortgage. Like I'm talking like the big guys. And I got into one in Miami, and it's doing great. It's doing well with 20%, uh, return. So um, that's pretty good. I'll take that. And the reason I don't like the bigger guys is because I don't feel I can do my due diligence properly on them.
Right. Right. Right.
I it's all about when it comes down to who you choose in that regard, it comes down to who you know and who is running it.
Hmm.
And you you know, try to get some information in their history and feedback, that type of thing. Uh, I would invest with them again if I had the opportunity because it's been really smooth and it's been really good. But typically the smaller landlords or investors are the ones I don't mind because it's just easier to do due diligence.
Yeah,
Does that make
absolutely.
sense? That I
Yeah, no, that's,
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
like everyone's
Yeah.
gonna have their criteria. So it's good that you have yours and, like it's there's lots of money lenders out there. I mean, there's like the private lenders that are, small guys like you and I, or there's institutional lenders that do this for a living, to like with funds and all that stuff and some
Yeah,
people in between. So everyone's got, different ways to lend. But I do agree with you, like, there should be an exit to that
yeah,
money, especially because it's more
exactly.
expensive money. So what
But
is
you did
the
say that you're doing it too, right?
yeah, I mean, I was doing it more now, like in the past,
Mhm.
and I actually was doing it more for students of mine, like
Yeah,
as a second on properties that I pretty
yeah.
much knew
That's
what
nice,
they were
yeah.
buying. So,
That's
but
true, yeah,
yeah, no, but I'm mostly active in actual deals now.
yeah, yeah. You're buying up all the cottage resorts. Leave
I
some
just
for the rest of us.
I actually just want one resort. I think one resort is going to be plenty because we're gonna
Yeah,
do because like it's a real estate transaction, but it becomes a business when it's finished, right? And then you got to run the business.
absolutely.
So I'm gonna
Yeah,
have some fun with that. I think it'll be good. We're gonna do some retreats, different events. People can book it for their own events. Like I don't know, it's fun. I'm looking forward to it. I'm
yeah,
looking forward to the summer.
yeah. Why do you think that's become popular? Like, I've seen a few other people, I won't say a few, I've seen others, like, who are getting into that realm, right?
Hmm.
They're buying a cottage. I won't say a full resort, but, they have a couple of cottages side by side and they're hosting events. Why is that more popular today than it was before COVID? At least in my view, at least from what I've
Yeah.
seen.
I mean, I think with the pandemic, what happened, and it's not necessarily the case anymore today, but everybody ended up renting cottages. And people that had cottages, myself included, we moved there, we had a great time, and we're so thankful for the cottage. But the money was amazing. Like when we did rent it, we bought a second one in 2021, and then we bought the resort also in 2021. Yeah, 2021. But I think the biggest thing is just people saw that there was an opportunity to create some really good cash flow. And then I think the other piece of it is people were not traveling as much, so they were staying more local, and so that was booming those areas. And then I think it became more and more. Again, I could be wrong, but I think our generation is looking more for experiences, right? That's where the money is going, not so much like the stuff anymore, but like what are some
Mm,
cool experiences, bucket list items.
mhm,
And resorts and boutique resorts, definitely have created a whole new realm of things. I mean, I think people are sick of just the standard hotels.
mm,
And
mhm.
even like you look at some Airbnbs and just based on some of the cool, unique features that they have, like that Airbnb probably is going to do better. Like I look at one of my Airbnbs that has game room. It's the whole entire garage is a games room. Yes, it has a hot tub as well, which was a big thing. But it's got like foosball, it has ping pong, it has like a basketball game. Like that place is always rented versus my other one, which I use personally as well. And I enjoy it. We come up in the summer, but we rent it in the winter and doesn't do as well because there's no hot tub and there's no
Yeah,
games room.
yeah.
So sometimes having those additional things and creating those experiences is a big thing. The resort itself is going to have, every cabin has its own private hot tub. It's going to have a sauna. It's beachfront. Like it's a cool spot. So it should do well too. Like we're just in a weird spot, I think, right now with the economy and people not having maybe as much disposable income as they had a year ago.
Mhm,
It's increasing, obviously, but
mhm.
it'll come back.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of people spend. People have money. I
Mhm.
don't, I'm looking around and people are still spending. They're planning trips. They're gone away on vacation. They're buying new cars. There's a lot of discretionary money out there. People eating out,
Mhm.
buying little toys, that type of thing, which is great. It's
Mhm.
fantastic. So it's just, a lot of people are talking about the economy going to tank, going to potty, but at the same time, I'm on the flip side, I'm seeing all these other things happening, which is kind of contradictory, but I'm not an economist. I won't pretend to know what's going on out there, but yeah, it's great that people think of your type of resort and want to stay there. It's awesome. Yeah. I'm the same as you. I'm sort of, when I'm going out, I don't love hotels, but I've had good experiences at Airbnbs, and I've had some bad ones as well. And hotels, it depends, as long as there's no hockey teams, low kid hockey teams staying at the hotel, I'm good. I'm good to go. For sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your events. I don't know when it is, but you're having Arlene come back, Arlene Dickinson.
Oh, yeah, no, she's not coming back. Oh,
okay.
sorry. Yeah. So she was there in 2020.
Got it.
And fantastic. And it was just at the right, we were so lucky because she came in right before COVID, like 2-3 weeks before COVID. And we got that event in, and it was a really good, theme in terms of, it was called reinvention. And that's what we want, people who are changing, doing different things, who want to try different things, and from investing to family to life in general, let's bring her in. And that would be a nice, and she's a businesswoman, of course, right? So it all tied in nicely, and she was really nice. I don't know, we took, because of COVID, Sue Hamid, who's the co-founder of the conference, we took a couple years off. We decided this year to hold off as well.
Okay.
Because we weren't sure. We just weren't sure what was going to happen.
Got it.
And so next year, or maybe even later this year, we might pick up and do something in the fall, but probably in 2024. And it's a different format. It's not the, it's sort of, we have a couple of investing tracks, right? And it could be, what's happening short-term rental, and there's short, fast talks, like they're all an hour and a half sort of thing. We have, the afternoon is, we have politicians come in, elected officials, explain to us why we should invest in their wards, what's going on there, economic growth and population and new activities. And then we have a chance to ask some questions, Sarah, one-on-one, but
Nice.
put the microphone to them, ask them some tough questions. And it's all about the business of landlording in the second half sort of thing. So it's a bit of a different conference. We try to get some investing in there, but like Ottawa Small Landlords Association, it's primarily about the business of landlording and maybe 10% of investing.
Got it.
So yeah, it's good. So how's yours going? Are you planning something soon?
With what?
Just an event.
Just the events? Oh yeah. So you know what? We started doing some events. Aisha, myself, and Lee. So we have that midterm rental company. But aside from that, we're like, let's do some events. I'm not part of the right club anymore. I had to make some choices, but I still like the in-person events. So the three of us host them in Burlington every so often. So they're fun. And then there's going to be events at the resort, which will also be amazing. But for your association, where can people find more information on that?
They can go to Facebook and just Google. They can go to Facebook and search. Can you Google on Facebook? You search Ottawa Small Landlords Association, go to the group. You have to answer the questions because we do check to make sure that you are a landlord or that you're involved in the real estate industry somehow, some way before approving the request. So just fill out the questions and come on. It's a different group. It's not a lot of, you're in there, and it's not a lot of complaining.
Are you talking about the Ontario like tenants and landlord association group? It has like thousands of people and it's mostly like tenant based.
Yeah, that one's not very nice.
Those ones are like
toxic.
Yeah, very toxic. But I love searching. If someone's applying like a tenant, I want to make sure they're not in that group.
100%. 100%.
Which is great.
Yeah. I left that group. There's like 2 or 3 of those groups out there, and I've left. I've left them all. They were just too much.
They were basically pro tenant, and we were the evil landlord and stuff. But I'll tell you, I keep them handy because I still want to know what they're all kind of talking about, and I know it's toxic, so I don't do it often because it makes me angry.
Yeah, that's right.
But a good screening tool to also check to make sure your tenants are not in that group.
and what they're posting. Like, what are they saying, right? If it's okay if they're in there, but it is, what are they contributing?
I prefer they not be in there either, though.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. It's like that's a check mark there. So in Oslo, at least it's not a lot of
No, you're
I
mostly
try not
like
to.
landlord help and assistance, and it's like actual
Yeah,
discussions,
yeah,
non-bashing, which I like, positive,
yeah. I
but
don't want to
like
get
informative.
into. And the LTB, everybody, we know the LTB is an issue out there, and there are other groups right out there. There's
Yeah,
Kayla's group, there's Solo out there, and they're advocating LTB reform. And
got it.
our vision down here is more municipal, but you can't avoid the LTB, right?
No, no.
It's
And
there, but
I would say for people here, join both groups, right? Kayla's group, which is Ontario Landlords Watch, and your group. And I think from a landlord perspective, you're going to have definitely a good grasp on.
good coverage. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
And at least
Yeah,
it's going to be landlords helping other landlords
that's
versus
right.
like,
Yeah, yeah.
if you give your opinion and your point of view as a landlord in some other groups that are tenant run, you are going to be like ousted like in
Yeah.
like 2 seconds.
Yeah. And in Oslo, you might end up seeing a lot of, just so people know, you're going to see a lot of football memes. You're going to see a lot of food memes when you're in our group. It's just the way I roll. Like it's got to be food based or football based. So that's the way it goes there in Oslo. So we try to align it that way, which is fun. It's not all serious, and sometimes we try to celebrate other people's wins as well.
Awesome. I love it. Tony, where can my listeners find out, reach out more, or reach out to you if they wanted to find out more?
Oh, Facebook, social media, Instagram, Twitter. I'm not on as much, but if you want to drop me an email, tony@tonymiller.ca.
Perfect. Now, you're obviously the founder of the Ottawa Landlord Association, but you're also a realtor. So if people do want to work with you from a realtor standpoint, is that also the same way to
Same
contact?
thing. Yep.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Tony, for being on. Really love
Hey,
it.
great
I
to
love
see
having
you.
I feel like this is your first podcast in a while, right? You said this podcast is the first you haven't done in a while, so I'm excited to have
It
you
is. Yeah.
have you back.
I'm glad to hear you. Yeah. It's been a while since
You've
I've
been super
done
busy,
this.
right? With like running your groups and stuff. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's great talking with
awesome.
you, Sarah. Good seeing you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Tony.
Okay. Peace out.
Thanks so much for listening to Where Should I Invest with your host, Sarah Larby. Make sure to listen in next time. We'll catch you on the next episode of Where Should I Invest?